We'll be looking at specifics from how the Nigerian agri sector has fared so far in the year 2024. Good thing we have an expert right here in the studio as we speak. I am joined by Dr. AJISEFINNI Ayodeji, who is an agribusiness expert. Thank you, Doctor, for coming on the program this morning. Good to see you.
Thank you very much for having me.
I will want to hear from you now. I mean, we have heard from Nigerians on how they think the Nigerian agri sector has fared so far in the year 2024. Before we even start going to the numbers, at least from the government, that is from the MBS, and how the government thinks, that the agri sector has fared. But you are someone who is a major player in the sector. You are a farmer, and you also engage in agribusiness practices. But looking generally from the month of January up until at least the start of December, how would you say the sector has fared so far?
Thank you very much once again. I would like to use a phrase that says, may your road be rough. I'm not cursing you, rather I'm wishing you what I wish myself. The road has been very rough, but despite that, we still need to appreciate Almighty for keeping us till today. That is number one thing. It is because we have life, we are still on earth, that's why we can assess what has happened. Looking at what some respondents have just said, in some part, it was totally negative. In some part, they have positive. The truth of it is, agriculture needs to move from agricultural practice to agribusiness practice, which, with what we have faced in the year 2024 under review, we bring private investors into it. In the area of insecurity, it's a serious issue. If we can borrow from what is happening in some south or southeast part of Nigeria, how they are securing their crude oil with private securities. If we can borrow and use that principle, invite private securities to work with government securities, maybe the issue of insecurity will be reduced. And this can be imbibed if our farmers can come together and let's see this thing as a business, not as an hobby. It is not easy.
You have, corroborated what most Nigerians said on social media, pointing towards a direction of insecurity. But assuming, the sector was a person and you needed to grade the sector, say over 10, what would your score be, for the agri sector?
Well, it is not what we had last year. I wouldn't like to put a percentage, but we are no longer crawling. Rather, we are now moving, taking step by step. We need to appreciate, no matter how little it is, the present administration and the Honorable Minister of Agri, who is a listening minister, who is more of private practice, now bringing private experience into the life of agribusiness. I think we are not stagnant. We will get there. Let's still have that hope.
Well said, Doctor. Even though you refuse to, put a number or a figure to the performance of the sector. But let us go now on a short break. When we return, the conversation continues, and we are reviewing the agri sector for the year 2024 this day. Thank you very much for staying with us. You are still watching Business Daily, coming to you live on Trust TV. And as the year, comes to an end, we are barely, 28 or 29 days to the end of the year. We have, started our end of year series, that is the Year in Review series. And today we are looking at the Nigerian agri sector. What a year it has been for food production, for livestock farming, for crop production, and the poultry sector, the fishery sector in the year 2024. But we shall be looking at specifics shortly. I have my guest here with me on the program rather. He is an agribusiness expert in the person of Dr. AJISEFINNI Ayodeji. Thank you again, Doctor, for coming on the program today.
It's my pleasure.
Doctor, even though you have, tried to play safe and not, put a specific tag or number as to how well, the agri sector has fared in general, but I would like for you to recount the major successes for the year, for, talking about the entirety of the agri sector, what would these major successes be from your lens?
Thank you. If I am to be fair in my judgment and in my personal opinion, I would like us to break it in accordance to the stakeholders' involvement. And who are the stakeholders? We start from government, to the farmers themselves, to the input suppliers, to the middlemen, and to we, the end consumers. What have we done to make things different when comparing 2023 and 2024? Yes, from the government perspective, 2023, I think, was the year of transition. If I'm not mistaken, 2024 is here. This is the year of implementation. Yes, in government, they came up with so many policies. We are expecting so many mechanization to be in place. We are expecting a lot of interventions. But what we expected more from the government is, one, to encourage and support the operation of farm settlements. To make a policy that will go down to the state and to local government, whereby each local government will have nothing less than 5 sites for farm settlement. Because the impact of government cannot be felt as a smallholder farmers because of how it comes from the top to bottom. If the government policies or impact wants to be felt, it will be on the basis of farm settlement operation.
But permit me to interject at this point, because you have repeatedly mentioned, policies. And I must say that in the year 2024, we saw the introduction of quite a number of, interesting policies. One of those is the introduction of the Ministry of Livestock.
Yeah.
Another is, the importation of a rice paddy and some other things. Quite a lot we did see play out in the year 2024. So looking at policies, which would you say, yielded the result, the expected result, and which would you say is still, on the way to yielding those results?
Yes, making policy is easier. Implementation of policies as government takes time. It takes a lot of process and bureaucracy for the implementation before the end users can feel it. We can only be smelling it, but for it to have direct impact, it takes time. And that is why I said we should not look at food security in the perspective of government alone. We had a crisis in Nigeria, and the crisis is the discovery of crude oil. Just like one of the commentators said, it is now that we are seeing that if there is no crude oil, what is our alternative? And the alternative is agriculture. We are now running agriculture, trying to move away from agriculture to agribusiness. And moving to that agribusiness, private sector needs to come in. Private investors needs to come in. Farm equipment, looking at the currency, tractor used to be less than 10 million naira, a complete tractor, MF 65 or 75. But now, if you don't have between 35 and 60 million naira, you cannot get a brand new tractor. How will a farmer get that? What then do we expect government to do? Introduction of asset financing policy for agricultural sector. Government is doing wonderfully well, trying to come up with policies that support MSMEs. We need such a thing in agric area. To be specific, you are into agribusiness, you need funding for your asset acquisition. Go to this bank at this single digit for this long gestation period. For us in Nigeria, if you are to say that we need tractors, we'll be needing nothing less than 1 million to 2 million tractors in Nigeria. Do we expect government to import and buy those 2 million tractors for us? Let's be practical.
But talking about government intervention, I mean, I know we saw some interventions in, the year 2024, and one of those was the disbursement of funds to farmers that were affected by the ginger blight
That's a compensation. That's a compensation.
And we saw that play out a lot of times.
Yes, it's a good development. It's a way of bringing hope back to them, giving them hope that we know what we are doing is a natural disaster. Now, how do we cure it? How do we stop it not to reoccur? And that was why the issue of insurance comes to being. And that is why I said we have been able to analyze little about government impact, what government have done, and what we wish for them to do further. What about the farmers themselves? We need to change our mindset. We need to do reorientation of our mindset. This is our business. Let's take it as our business. It's not every time we should be waiting for government to kickstart our business for us. Let's learn to take it as a business, ready to take it as a risk. And let's be ready to take that risk, find a means of mitigating against the risk.
I would like for us to, at this point, look at some data that I did collate regarding how the sector fared, the agri sector has fared so far, and we can have that displayed from the GDP contribution. In the most recent GDP numbers, we saw that there was the record of growth in the agri sector by 1.41% year on year, at least for the second quarter of 2024, and our guest here has emphasized the need for, the private sector to play a key role. And that also brings us to conversations around foreign investment, which dropped by 41% in the second quarter, from about $10.01 million in 2023 to $5.91 million in the second quarter. Unfortunate reduction there. But moving away from that now to crop production, which accounted for 8% of agriculture GDP and grew by 1.65% year on year. Meanwhile, forestry and fishery expanded by 2.77% and 0.38% year on year, at least in the second quarter of 2024. Lastly is the livestock sector that contracted by 1.71% year on year in the second quarter. Doctor, I would like for you to speak regarding the role of the private sector, juxtaposing it here with the foreign investment, which dropped in the second quarter from $10.01 million to $5.91 million. What message does this pass regarding investment in the Nigerian agri space?
Insecurity plays the paramount role. Every investor wants his or her own investment to be secured. The major reason for that drop, to my own understanding, is being caused by lack of security for their investment. I brought in my money to support local farmers. Unfortunately, issue of insecurity make my investment to go down the drain. And unfortunately, the so-called farmers who are not insured. Who carries the liability is the investor. That is from my own personal opinion, number one factor that brought this issue is the area of insecurity. And that is why I said it has gotten to a level where private security organization needs to work with agribusiness operators in Nigeria. We don't need to rely solely on government security agencies. Let's use our local intelligence, security intelligence to collaborate with government. That will help us a lot. In the inter-city, inter-villages, whereby moving the government security agents to interland, you know what that takes? Why can't the private security operatives, to every challenges, there's always an opportunity for investment. We know in Nigeria today we have insecurity problem.
And I should say that insecurity, came up as one of the major challenges whilst we went through our social media comment. But what would you say were the top 5 challenges that farmers faced this year?
1, insecurity. 2, climate change. 3, high cost of input. 4, unavailability or inadequacy of farm implements. 5, knowledge and technology.
With insecurity again, being the elephant in the room,
Yes.
taking the first position amongst the challenges that
Yes.
farmers did face. And as we wrap up, marching towards the end of the year, what would you recommend, should be or ways to tackle this challenge of insecurity, which unfortunately has been, a challenge that has persisted for a long time now?
I've said it and I'm repeating it. We have so many private security intelligence companies in Nigeria. This is an area they can venture into to support government agencies. It's not going to be a free service. And that's why I always talk about agribusiness. When farmers are doing their economic of production, they should incorporate the cost of security as they are incorporating the cost of insurance. Therefore, when you have the cost of security into your economic of production, it will enable you to be relaxed, have insurance in place, have your security personnel in place, and you can only benefit from this if you are in a clustered environment. It's not easy. It won't be too cheap for individual farmers to practice that. For commercial purpose, let's go back to farm settlement operation as a policy for food security in Nigeria.
And now to, all the challenges that you mentioned, from the supply side issues to, post-harvest losses. We want for us to touch on post-harvest losses for a minute. In the year 2024, we had concerns of flooding, and the likes, which to a large extent not just affected, post-harvest, but even pre-harvest as well. But I'd like for you to speak regarding that. How did we fare in preserving and storing food, at least for 2024?
We did not fare very well. We need more support in the area of harvesting period and post-harvesting period. Manual harvesting and manual storage of our farm produce is not helping us. The perishable goods are getting worse and we are losing a lot. I have a farmer that have 300 hectares of rice farm who is now looking for mechanical way of harvesting his output instead of using manual. How many hectares, how many people will you engage to harvest your paddy rice? Such a person will lose nothing less than 100 hectares of the product. But if he has a way of hiring or having the facilities to take a loan facilities or government support facilities to get a rice harvester and have a storage facilities. In Nigeria today, we should be looking at silos for industrial use, for cluster farmers. Let's be bringing silos, how we can have silos at the local government level for farm produce, where farmers will be able to preserve their products instead of using the conventional way, which is not helping us at all. Government still needs to do a lot. Why? They have the resources to support. They can open up opportunities to farmers to have their own, if and only if these agricultural facilities fundings are opened at a single digit rate and they come up with their own terms and conditions. I believe it will have a serious impact.
Now to other issues, looking at the introduction of the Ministry of Livestock. I think it's important that we also address that and how that is affecting our dairy sector and which has other subsectors underneath it. From milk production to yogurt production, cheese and the likes.
I think the issue of livestock, the Ministry of Livestock have started giving some positive impact, especially in the northern part of Nigeria. The issue, how long ago have we heard about farmers and cattle rearers issues? You see, the best thing is talk to people in their language. Let people see why you need to do it this way. I want to believe the ministry has a lot to do in the area of cattle, in the area of fish farming, in the area of wild animals, in the areas of poultry. Now, for livestock farmers, this is our opportunity to grow our business. Let's work hand in hand with the ministry at the state level and at the national. It is mandatory for us to go back to the system of having our ranch in order to increase the beef, to increase the milk, and to increase our poultry output. If we have all these things in place, I believe Nigeria will earn a lot of foreign currencies, and the foreign reserve will be increased through livestock units, because we have the potential in Nigeria.
Well said. And as we are, approaching the wrap-up of the year, budgetary allocations have already started, making the news. And I'd like for you to, speak regarding that, at least for the agri sector, and your expectations for the year 2025.
My expectation for year 2025 for we, the farmers, is elevation. It's elevation, but when
you sound like a politician at this,
yes,
this point.
Because when you talk about government budget has a purpose. Let's be realistic with ourselves. When you talk about budget for Ministry of Agri, they have their capital expenditure, they have their recurrent expenditure. Their capital expenditure may be for acquisition of some assets, and they have their overhead costs. We as an individual farmer should not rely so much on the allocation of budget to that ministry before we decide or do our own budget. If it comes, we only want the impact of their policies to have direct enhancement of our own business. It is the best thing for we, the farmers. Let's go back to drawing board and do our own budgets. That is the truth. As an agribusiness practitioner, government budget is for their own, is for the ministries, capital expenditure and recurrent expenditures. Government intervention is what can be our own impact that will reflect to us. I don't know if I'm making any point.
Absolutely, I understand what you're saying.
Exactly. It is the intervention in the sector of agri is what we should be looking at in that budget, not what they want to use the money for, but which area are they increasing, what are they doing that will have impact to the smallholder farmers.
But there has also been, concerns around the increase of the allocation for the agri sector. What are your thoughts on that?
For the establishment of another ministry, there will be increase, and our population is increasing. The cost of running of the ministries and other parastatals under the ministry will increase. Therefore, we appeal, consider more budget allocation to the department and Ministry of Agri.
And finally, we would like for you to speak on, addressing concerns around food insecurity, which I recall in the month of August, we did hear from diverse organizations, the AFDB, which had even projected that over 14 million Nigerians were going to be at the risk of, facing food crisis across some states in Nigeria. But let's speak towards 2025 now. What low-hanging fruit areas should be addressed to ensure that we don't see this reoccurring again?
This is dry season. My dear farmers, let's tap into it. Don't let us stand behind and consider rain-fed farming alone. Why we are suffering and having issue of food insecurity in Nigeria is because we rely so much on single-season farming. Don't let us only allow only one unit or one geopolitical area to be doing the dry season while other ones will be relaxing. Let's work together and do dual season. Our government support us at the state level, at the local government level. Support dry season farming in your various local governments. That will enhance food security for the year 2025.
And you have repeatedly hammered on cluster farming.
Yes. Government infrastructures cannot go to everyone. If in the local government, we have 774 local governments in Nigeria, and we have in each local government, they have minimum of 10 wards. Let's assume you have 50 hectares in each ward of your, in the local government, you are able to come up with 500 hectares of land. Give them solar pumping machine, give them industrial borehole, clear the lands for them, and lease these facilities for the farmers. Is a source of IGR to such local government. And whatever they produce there will be in commercial level. The security we are talking about will be available. And let's consider our grower scheme as another source of minimizing cost of production.
But that goes to show that the local government, have a huge role to play.
They have the 60% role in ensuring food security in Nigeria. Truth be told. The state is at the top. The local government are they are the grassroots. The land is in care of the local government. What are they doing with it? Let the local government that has the asset, they have a land availability, do the needful. Individual farmers cannot acquire bulldozer. You in local government, get one as your capital expenditure. This is 2024, you are projecting for 2025. Put acquisition of bulldozers, capital expenditure in your budget. Put purchase of tractor. Don't only rely on the tractor purchased by state government. Invest heavily in agribusiness. Your local government will never be forgetting by your habitants in the area. And you that will be doing that will be an hero in that local government. God bless us.
And lastly, before we go, I will want to, you have emphasized also on the need for training.
Yes.
Because it's not enough to introduce these machines and introduce these machines to farmers, but then not all farmers are aware or able to use these machines.
I discovered something in capacity building of reasons. I have some people, I used to give them mentorship and training. Somebody now say, I have a group of farmers that don't have Android phone, but they are interested. I said, you know what? Put them in a classroom. I will use local language. If I can't speak your language, I will get an interpreter that will come to their level, change their mindset. First thing we need to do to our local farmer is adopt agribusiness as a way to ensure your business. Tell them the advantages. Mindset is very difficult to change, but if you are able to get it changed, you will make an impact. And that is number one thing. We continue to train ourselves until we get there.
Indeed, training and capacity building, or the role of training and capacity building cannot be overemphasized. Thank you so much, Dr. AJISEFINNI Ayodeji, who's an agribusiness expert. Thank you for the very insightful conversation that you've engaged us in this morning. Deeply appreciated. And that's the much that we will be taking on Business Daily today. But keep the conversation going across all the social media platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, and of course on X. Let us hear from you. How has the agri sector fared, at least from your own lens? And what would you say has been the major high point and the major low point so far in the year? My name is Chiamaka Enendu. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.